Women are bad drivers, not because we drive badly, but because we drive wrong. What does that even mean? Well, it doesn't mean we're reckless or incapable. It means the entire automotive system, from crash tests to seat design, was never built for us. Let's get something straight. Women are not inherently worse at driving. In fact, according to a study done in 2011 by the New York Committee for Occupational Safety and Health, men are more likely to cause car crashes. Yet, women are 47% more likely to be seriously injured, and 17% more likely to die in some of those accidents. Even when you account for height, weight, seatbelt use, and crash intensity, women still lose. Why? Because cars were designed with only one kind of body in mind, the average male body. For 75 years, crash test dummies were almost always based on the 50th percentile male, roughly 5'9" and around 170 pounds. That means shorter statures, different pelvis shapes, breasts, and unique spinal angles were all ignored. In other words, women's bodies were, and still are, treated as design outliers. To understand why, we have to go back to the beginning. Cars weren't always everyday tools. At the turn of the 20th century, they were luxury items, symbols of power, speed, and wealth, and almost always driven by men. As cars became more accessible in the early 20th century, their use became deeply gendered. Men drove to work, reinforcing the image of the sole male provider. Women, meanwhile, stayed at home, caring for families, managing households, and only occasionally driving for domestic errands. Advertising hammered this point home. Cars were sold to men, built for men, and imagined as an extension of masculine identity. The car was never just a machine. It was a cultural object, a symbol of independence, strength, and control, traits long associated with masculinity. And women? We were mostly seen as passengers. So when engineers designed the car, its pedals, its seats, its safety mechanisms, they had only one kind of driver in mind: the man behind the wheel. Fast forward to today, cars and their drivers have changed, with women making up to over 50% of drivers in many countries. Yet, design hasn't really caught up. However, meet Swedish engineer Astrid Linder, who in 2022 created the world's first anatomically correct female crash test dummy, Thor 5F. Her work is revolutionary. But here's the catch. Even with this groundbreaking dummy, regulators still don't require her dummy in safety tests. Therefore, auto companies can't even input the data she provides into the current safety standards. Why? Because technical standards reflect political choices. Science and technology scholar Judah Weber reminds us, technology is never neutral. The technical is always political. Behind every neutral design is a set of values, priorities, and exclusions. In this case, the question is, who? Who gets protected and who gets left out? Again, cars are more than just tools. They're cultural status symbols. Mainstream media still markets cars as muscle, think built tough, power you can feel, unleash the beast, always narrated by some cool, gravelly male voice or a hyper-sensual woman. Meanwhile, the cultural script that women drivers are indecisive, overly cautious, or just plain bad lingers. It's a punchline in sitcoms, a stereotype in ads, and a justification in design labs. This isn't only about hardware. It's about the narratives that shape hardware. Because if cars symbolize masculinity, if the driver is imagined as male, physically, socially, culturally, then women in cars become intruders. And what happens when design imagines only one kind of user? The rest of us are left unprotected. Let's ask a radical question. What if the car itself isn't just purely designed, but designed to exclude? Not on purpose, not because it's a glitch or direct malice per se, but because of a long, slow snowball accumulation of gendered assumptions that have now been built into every single part of the vehicle. Assumptions, again, about who drives, who repairs, who buys, who matters. As sociologist Judy Wajcman argues in The Built Environment, Women's Place, Gendered Space, when women shape design, the results are often much more inclusive and human-centered. That is, more ergonomic, functional, adaptable, complex, thoughtful. Not because women are inherently better designers, but because they bring different lived experiences to the table. Design isn't just about aesthetics, it's about values. What we choose to include, who we choose to protect, and whose voices we allow in the room. Enter the YCC project. In 2001, Volvo handed 9 women a blank slate. Their task was to design a car for women by women, the Your Concept car. It had wide visibility, ergonomic seating, no traditional hood, storage for umbrellas, and even a ponytail slit on the headrest. It was smart, elegant, and unapologetically user-friendly. And yet, it was never produced because it wasn't universal enough, which translates to not fitting the male default. So once again, thoughtful design was discarded. Now you may ask, why don't car companies just fix this? Money. Incorporating diverse crash test dummies is complex and expensive. Accounting for different body types slows down the standardization way too much, and regulators don't require change, so manufacturers have no real incentive. It's not that they hate women, it's that they love profit. But that's the thing. Safety shouldn't be market-driven, it should be people-driven. When the government doesn't mandate inclusive testing, progress stalls, and women keep dying. The good news is, change is always possible. We have the data, we have the dummy, we even had the car. What we don't have yet is the will to change. The recurring patterns of neglecting female-specific design, whether in safety or concept cars, highlights a systemic issue. Why are companies so slow to prioritize the needs and safeties of all of their customers, rather than just who fit a pre-existing mold? The answer lies in challenging existing power structures and demanding more inclusive approach to design and regulation. Hence why feminist SCS is so important. Because inclusive design isn't just a nice to have, it's a life-saving imperative. When we design for all bodies, we design for safety itself.